Hello, everybody. Great to be with you today. Cornerstone Youth and Young Adults, Pastor Lucas here, coming at you once again with another podcast mini. And I felt compelled to talk about pain today. There is this really awesome guy that I love to watch on YouTube. His name is Johnny Scoville. And, I can't quite confirm if that really is his true last name or not because of what his YouTube channel is all about. Have you ever heard of the Scoville Heat Index? And essentially, that's how they measure the hotness of peppers. They give it a Scoville number. The higher the number, the hotter it is. So, your jalapeno will have a higher Scoville heat number than your green pepper, so on and so forth. And there is this guy, I kid you not, his name is Johnny Scoville. All right. Now, I don't really know if that's his true last name or not. I mean, if it truly is his last name, then he was destined to eat hot peppers. Yeah, I found this guy during COVID because there wasn't much to do, and I bet that I'm sure his YouTube channel just blew up. A lot of YouTube channels blew up during COVID, and essentially every single day, maybe even twice a day, he would post a video of him eating something really hot. He would eat something really hot for breakfast, and then he would eat something really hot, like a snack before he went to bed. Sometimes it was candy. A lot of times it was like straight crazy hot peppers. And I got to learn a lot about peppers, crossbreeds, and how a pepper gets verified to be sold in stores, and why certain peppers that are like super, super, super hot aren't verified and aren't sold in stores and hard to find and hard to buy. And essentially, he had created all these relationships with all these awesome farmers around the United States. They would just send him boxes of like crazy peppers that you've never heard of before and I had never heard of before. And I got really into this guy. Like I loved watching him eat hot stuff. And he would say something like this, like, okay, he would eat like this like super hot pepper that would really, really, really like destroy me or you. And he would eat it. And he's like, oh, it's like probably a 5 out of 10 for heat for me, but for you it would be a 10 out of a 10 or an 11 out of a 10. It would really hurt you badly. And I just was like so interested in how you can learn to like essentially get used to pain, and your body can actually adjust. And he says his like body adjusts to hot peppers, and is not as hot for him anymore as it used to be. And a lot of times too, he would say this. He'd say, "Pain is good. Pain is good." And I was always like thinking to myself, that's kind of true. Like there is a lot of truth to this idea that pain is good. I think about in the Bible, Jesus would heal leprosy. And leprosy is, in essence, a disease that makes you go numb. So it destroys the nerve endings, and it starts with the extremities at the ends of your body, your toes, your fingers, your nose, your ears, your lips, and then it slowly works its way up to your arms and your legs, and it destroys your nerves and it causes you to go numb. And I did a little research on leprosy a number of years ago, and they say that this is a very dangerous disease because what happens apparently is that people who have leprosy, they'll get a cut on their toe or their finger or something like that on their body, and they don't know it. All right, because it's numb, and that cut gets infected and gets diseased, and it turns bad, and then they have to get certain parts of their body have to start to be amputated, like fingers and toes and like even your nose, to prevent a furthering of your like infection. Okay. And the doctors say it is so important for you to feel pain. It's important actually for your health to be able to feel pain. Um, and it can be really, really bad for certain people with leprosy. Like if they have not just maybe like a cut that they can't feel that happened on the outside, but maybe like a broken bone that they can't feel break. They'll maybe even have like cancer that they don't feel is destroying their body because they can't feel pain. And before they know it, it's has spread and they had no idea that their body was dealing with this level of pain because they couldn't feel it. So it's really nasty, this idea of being numb. And I love that message that one of my friends preached called "Numb is Dumb." Essentially, you need to be able to feel stuff. Like you have to be able to feel. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to feel. Like feeling pain is actually a gift from the Lord. Um, to be feel heartbreak, that's you need that to feel bad for hurting somebody. You need that. You need to feel pain. It's really important for your health to be able to feel pain. And I was reflecting back a little bit on uh, I would call it like the most painful uh, camping trip of my life. And I look back on that camping trip. When I was in that experience in camping for, I think I camped for 4 days. And it was the most painful camping experience of my life. When I was in the experience, I was not happy. All right. And I kind of wanted it to be over. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired of the what do you call it? I was tired of the hiking. I was tired of the heat. I was tired of the hunger. I got worn down on the journey, and I just didn't want to be camping anymore. And I'll explain to you this trip. But so what I was saying is that during the experience, I wasn't happy. I didn't want to be there. But now that all the years have passed, and even like I even remember just even a few days after it had passed, I was able to share the story with people because they're like, "Hey, how was your camping trip?" And I was able to tell them my camping trip, and I had a sense of real, true accomplishment um, of uh, of that camping experience. And I remember even feeling proud of myself to be able to explain to people how I survived this thing. Because I remember you tell people what I did, and they're like, "Oh man, I would never want to do that." And essentially, it ended up being the hardest camping trip of my life on accident. I was in college. I had a good friend come to me and say, "Hey, apparently there's like a 200-foot waterfall somewhere in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, and there's like a 14-mile hike we can take to find it." And I was like, "Yeah, oh, that sounds awesome." And none of us truly gave too much thought into the difficulty of the hike, and that was our first big mistake. So I remember we arrived at the huge park in the Ozark Mountains, and it's like a national park. And we arrived a little late at night. It was dark, and so we essentially didn't know where the trail started. And thankfully, we found this like state trooper, this like a DNR officer or whatever. And this guy was really nice, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna want to start right here." And then he said something that alarmed us right away. He's like, "I probably wouldn't do this hike at night. There's a lot of river crossings." We're like, "There's river crossings?" He's like, "Oh yeah, this hike is miles and miles long, and it follows the river. I think it was the Arkansas River. It follows the river, and you've got to cross the river numerous times." And he's like, "And you know what? Even starting off on this hike, like right away, you have to cross the river. And I don't think you guys should start this hike right now because you'd have to cross the river at night, and I don't think it's very safe." And so we were a little alarmed right away. And I remember even talking to each other like, "Oh, I hope this river is shallow." And so we started the hike. It was probably 10 o'clock at night. It was really dark. We had our headlamps on, got our backpacks on, and immediately came up to this river pretty quickly, like less than a half a mile into the hike. We just wanted to get maybe a mile or two in and then camp. We just wanted to get like at least 1 mile behind us. It felt really weird to like not hike at all when you arrived at the park, that first day. So we hike in and we get up to this river. And I remember we started crossing this river, and it was like super deep. Like it was like chest deep. All right. And so much so that we had to swim. None of us were prepared to swim. All of our stuff got wet. Our clothes are wet. Our shoes are wet. Our sleeping bags get wet. Like absolutely everything gets wet. Stuff that you don't want to get wet gets wet. And immediately, I'm like talking immediately, folks, we're just kind of miserable. Terrible night's sleep, nothing's dry, can't get warm personally. The next day, the sun comes up. You're like, "Oh, it's going to be a great day. Let's go find these waterfalls." And so none of us had a change of shoes. So like our shoes and socks get wet. And like the next morning, we have to put back on wet shoes, which is like a terrible, terrible. It's terrible to hike in wet shoes. The river was like way deeper than we expected. Every single time we crossed the river, our stuff kept getting wet. Even after it would dry, it would get wet again. I didn't bring enough food or water because we were hiking so many miles. We packed really light because we wanted to hike fast, and that was a big mistake. So essentially, I went a long time without eating or getting enough to drink. The waterfall, by the time we got to the place where the waterfall was supposed to be at, it was pretty dried up and there wasn't much water falling. So it was a big disappointment. We had to hike 7 miles back. We weren't looking forward to doing that again. And I'm telling you, folks, by the time we made it back to our car, we weren't in a good mood. We were hungry, thirsty, wet, hot, irritated, and it was rough. We didn't sleep well. We didn't eat well. Our feet were all blistered up because we hiked for 14 miles in wet shoes, wet socks. It was really, really difficult, really painful. But I look back on that now and I'm so just, I guess the word would be like proud. I really am. I'm like, wow, we did it, even though it stunk. Like we pushed through, even though we really didn't have to. Like, honestly, we could have just got back in the car and just went home. Nobody was making us go to this waterfall. But we pushed through, we did it. It ended up being a memory for a lifetime. And I'm glad I did it. And I'm here to say this, that sometimes the most painful experiences of your life are the best. And maybe you're living right now, currently, in a very painful experience. My advice to you is don't quit. Don't stop. Keep going. Get through it. Go through it. Get through it. Learn from it. Learn through it. Because then when you come to that obstacle again in the future, you'll know better. You'll know what to do differently. Now, since then, I've gone camping dozens of times. I've gone hiking dozens of times. I will not make the same mistakes twice. And I'm proud of that painful experience I went through. And we can be proud of our pain. We can come through better. We come through stronger. And I feel like that's what life is all about. All right, everybody. It's been great to be with you today. If you got any questions for our Mailbag podcast, don't forget, email them in to me, lucas@ignited.org, or Pastor Aaron@ignited.org. Or you can leave a question under a comment on our YouTube page, CY and YA. That's how you find us. youtube.com/@CY and YA. It's been great to be with you today, audience. Catch you on the next one.